After receiving a lot of constructive feedback on my lo-fi tutorial, I figured I'd take another stab at making a lo-fi beat, keeping in mind all the viewers submitted feedback and tips. Lo-fi isn't really my favorite genre or anything like that, but I do enjoy the aesthetic and the nostalgic vibe that it gives off. I also really like jazz, so the smooth jazz samples often used in lo-fi productions are really pleasing to my ears. Again, I'll be using no music samples in this tutorial. The reason being is that I think it's more practical for artists to not have to rely on samples, since the cost of clearing a sample can cost upwards of 10 grand. I'm going to start off making a melody using this piano from Kontakt. I'll be working in the scale of A minor. Since this will take a while, I'll speed up the footage to save time. Here's what I came up with. I added some effects. First off, I applied the iZotope Vinyl plugin. I turned up the warp depth, dust, electrical, and mechanical noise knobs just a little bit. I don't want to overdo it. Next, I put a compressor on the piano. I just used the default setting, nothing too heavy, just a subtle bit of compression to level things out. Then I applied an EQ, cutting the lows around 140 Hz, boosting the low mids at 297 Hz, and boosting around 2.9 kHz. I also added this Imager plugin to widen up the mids and low mids. Here's what it sounds like now. I pulled up this preset in Omnisphere and I laid down this melody. I applied some effects. First, I cut the lows at 319 Hz. I put a bandpass at 5.2 kHz and a high shelf at 6.3 kHz. Then I added some reverb. And finally, I added this 1/4 delay. Here's what it sounds like with effects added. I laid down a snare. I also added some reverb to the snare to give it a bit more ambience. I made this kick pattern. I laid down some hats. I decided to add reverb to these as well. I added this lo-fi snare roll sound. I laid down a perk. I also added an extra snare. I added this open hat with a bit of reverb. I linked all of the drums to a single mixer track, and I applied a bus compressor to glue all of the sounds together. I put an EQ on the drum bus as well, to cut all of the highs above 5.9 kHz. Here's what the drums sound like all together. I pulled up a couple of vocal samples, and I'm just going to drag them into the playlist later. I applied the iZotope Vinyl plugin to the vocal samples. I also used an EQ to cut the lows at 578 Hz and the highs at 3.8 kHz. Then I added this 1/4 delay. Here's what the vocals sound like with effects applied. I'm using Citrus for the bass. I saw a bass gutter tutorial where he made a bass sound using Citrus, and I just copied what he did to create this sound. I added this squeaky rocking chair sound. And finally, I sidechained the kick to the master channel to create that pumping effect that most lo-fi tracks feature. Well, that's it. Let's see what the final beat sounds like.